Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chasing Chevy Chase podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris Stachiw, and I am joined by my two good friends all the way from Cambridge and Wishawn, Mark Begley.
Hello.
And he's the writer of this movie, all the way from the Projection Booth podcast, Mike White.
I left out all of the motorcycles.
I thought you were going to say I changed the name on the script to Alan Smithy, and they wouldn't let me.
Why would I do that? This is one of my masterpieces right here.
Yes, it truly is, as if written by the god herself. On this episode of the Chasing Chevy Chase podcast, we are taking a little bit of diversion away from what we normally are talking about. Yes, Chevy Chase is in this movie. No, he's not in it a whole lot. But the gag is this movie's written by Mike White. Not our Mike White, but a Mike White. The Mike White of what? The White Lotus and School of Rock and
Despicable Me 4, Pitch Perfect 3, the Emoji Movie. Come on. I got all kinds of hits here.
Cool.
And twice on The Amazing Race.
That's right. Me and my dad.
Yep.
Mike, you get around a lot. You know that?
I certainly do.
Yeah.
It helps that there's at least two of me. Plus, there's a guy that plays football with my name, as well as I think the mayor of Cleveland for a while was Mike White. So
Wow.
I am legion.
But yeah, on this episode of the Chasing Chevy Chase podcast, we are going to be watching and talking about 2002's comedic film from MTV and Paramount Pictures, Orange County. So the film is directed by Jake Kadan, like we mentioned, written by Mike White, stars Colin Hanks, Jack Black, Catherine O'Hara, John Lithgow, Lily Tomlin. Chevy Chase is in there technically for a literal split second. And the film attempts to make Colin Hanks like his father, a likable teenage protagonist, which is not the case. It is never the case, and it's never going to be the case in this movie. And it's about a kid who can't get into Stanford because they sent the wrong transcript. Feels like that would be a phone call to fix everything. But hey, 2002 was a different time, folks. And this was a movie. So, Mike, I'm going to kick it to you first. What did you think of Orange County?
Yeah, the main thrust of the entire movie, trying to get into this one college. You know, if you don't get in this year, you can always go back next year. There is a thing called a gap year. You could travel Europe if you wanted to. Feels like your family has enough money to send you over there. Yeah. And if your mom and dad are, got you under their thumb, well, maybe move away and, live your own life, kid. So, but, that probably wasn't in that book written by Kevin Kline. So what do I know? But I thought it was funny, but there were some good parts to it. I probably will never need to watch this again. What'd you think, Mark?
I think I was in a really bad mood when I watched this. Because
Sure it didn't put you in a bad mood?
No, I think I started out, and I'm not sure why. And I thought, okay, let's sit down and watch this. I've seen clips from it over the years, and I've seen the trailer numerous times. I'm not sure why. And I always figured it was probably decent and fairly funny. And I think I laughed twice during the movie, chuckled twice. And then at some point, like you both have already mentioned, thought to myself, I couldn't care less about this guy's problem. It is a non-issue. He's got numerous ways to figure this out other than the way that he does try to figure it out. And I don't care about this kid. And I don't even care that his friend died the year before in a horrible tsunami wave surfing accident, which I'm not sure why that was in here. But yeah, couldn't care less about Colin Hanks' character in this film. And so what's the point of the movie then? For me. How about you, Chris?
I was watching this movie with some friends yesterday, and I kept just coming back to the point of contention, which is, if you were to not have the correct transcript sent to college, it's literally a matter of calling them and saying, there was a snafu with my transcript. Let me get you the right one. And they would be like, okay, thank you for letting us know. Like, there's none of this like, well, you can't get into college now and your life is ruined. It's like, that's not how this works.
Right.
And I have a problem when a movie is like this, when the basic premise of the movie is completely foregoing any logic or reason or common sense. And this is one of those movies. The literal premise is that Lily Tomlin's character sent Stanford someone whose name is similar to Colin Hanks's character's name, sent his transcript, and that guy got in, and he didn't. It doesn't even make any sense, because this other person gets in as well. It's not like Colin Hanks just doesn't get in and no one else does. This other person gets in as well. The Fran Kranz character from the actor from Cabin in the Woods. But
well, yeah, and they kind of cover it by saying, well, I sent it in as a lark and I got in, and it's like,
yeah. I mean, you don't just send in stuff as a lark. There's a fee that goes along with submitting these. There's also usually an essay.
I was about to say written essays are a thing with all of this.
Yeah.
As someone who's applied to college in the last 20 years, this is, like...
It's hard for me to take this movie seriously because the premise is so flawed on the face of it. Like, the premise is so unbelievably stupid. It's stupid because it doesn't make any sense. It falls apart the moment you try to think about it. And one of my friends just goes, well, it's a movie, and I was like, I know it's a movie, but that doesn't change the fact that they didn't write it very well. Like,
well, the central conceit has to be plausible.
Correct.
It's not. And above that, I don't care about this kid, and his problem is not a problem. Like you've already mentioned, he's from two wealthy families.
You have to live in Orange County? What the fuck, dude? What are you, a fucking baby? Like,
and the way he goes about trying to solve everything he does to try and solve it is using his privilege instead of making that simple phone call. Lily Tomlin can call and say, hey, man, I sent Shane's instead of Sean's, etc. I've got his transcripts right here. Let me resend them. End of story.
I can really empathize with this kid, though, as far as Lily Tomlin, the school counselor, because I had one of the worst school counselors ever. At least she talks to him about submitting for college and probably has given him a little bit of advice. I mean, the advice of don't apply any place except for this school is always bad advice because you never know what's going to happen. But still, if his heart set on there, okay, great. But my gosh, Mrs. Brockbrader, who we used to call Mrs. Browbeater, she was the worst. Never told us anything. Like, I went through 4 years of college prep classes, never knew that there was placement tests to place out of different classes.
Mm-hmm.
That cost me thousands of dollars. That to me is more of an affront to school counselors and this whole idea than this kid. Like, this kid can afford to pay a few $1,000s if he happens to not take the college prep classes and pass out a, Spanish 101 or whatever. It's just like, okay, dude, yeah, it's a simple mistake and just so easy to get out of it. And I love what you're saying, Mark, as far as using his privilege. Like, oh, I know somebody who knows somebody who can get the actual people here for me to do this in front of, and then embarrass myself over and over again. But it feels like every single time he's like, oh, no, I'll try to skirt the system. And it's like, why? Why are you doing that? Like, there's no reason for you to be engaged in these hijinks when all you have to do is just state what your case is.
Right. Or get his dad involved.
Right.
His rich dad is going to take care. And I'm like, at that point, when he goes to the house, I'm like, it's like those people that, those actresses that Felicity Huffman and that other gal that, paid this money to get their kids into schools they didn't belong in. Not that he doesn't belong in it. He obviously is a high achiever, but none of that is really spelled out very clearly. That was my other problem with this movie. Like, I had no idea who Bob was. I thought that was his grandpa or just some old dude that lived in there. I had no idea until like halfway through the movie that was his stepdad, that he was married to Catherine O'Hara's character. No idea, because he keeps calling him Bob, which I get, stepdad, you don't call dad or whatever. But there was no indication that he was daddy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think when he went to John Lithgow's house, I was like, oh, that's who that old guy is. I thought he was grandpa living with them. And the Hispanic gal was there to take care of him, which she says she's not. But nothing was spelled out. It's not really explained that he's this great student and, was automatically on the fast track to Stanford. It's just like, oh, I've read this book. I want to be a writer. And now I'm going to go to Stanford so I could meet this guy and take his classes. Okay. Good luck with that.
Well,
life choice.
So early in the movie that you forget. Well, I didn't forget, and I don't imagine you guys did either, but this whole revelation of Kevin Kline at the end of the film, you're like, oh yeah, he said that story. And it's like the whole movie, I'm like, well, when is the author? Like, who's going to play the author? Because there are cameos galore in this movie. Who's going to play that author, and when is he going to show up? And then when he does show up, he makes not a lick of difference in the world. It's not like, he just kind of gives him a little advice rather than, oh, here, let me help you out. Because I was like, oh, of course, Kevin Kline probably is like, I want this kid in my class and I have to do everything I can. And I've been looking for your name in the roles or something like that to, show that he actually cares. But, he remembers the story. So that's good. But otherwise, doesn't make a lick of difference to this whole movie.
Mike, George Murdoch is in this movie. I'm Barney Miller, Detective Scanlon. Yeah.
It was so nice to see him.
What the hell?
And yeah, like you, Mark, I had no idea that he was the new husband because he seemed so much older than Catherine O'Hara. I really did think he was the grandfather.
Yeah, and she's horribly underused in this film. Her being a drunk, like that appears out of nowhere when Gary Marshall and what's her name show up. One of his means to an end, friend of theirs at school, knows these. Oh, I don't even remember what their relationship was, but now they're over at the house and apparently she's an alcoholic all of a sudden. I don't know.
It was his girlfriend who we never really get a bead on because the first time they show the girlfriend, she does this. This might be the best story that's ever been written. I'm like, okay, is she just completely brain dead? Because I don't see this story garnering that much praise, but apparently it is a great story. And then the next time we see her, she's doing this whole thing about like saving dogs. Then you get her saving the dog later on, which is a total nightmare. I'm like, okay, is she stupid or what? And then at the end of the film, you're like, no, she's actually a very nice person. And like, I can understand where she's coming from, that she doesn't want to lose her boyfriend and all this. But for the rest of the movie, I'm just like, who is this person? And even when she helps him out with this whole trying to get Gary Marshall over there, it's her blackmailing that other girl with all of those shenanigans where the friend who's basically like a Heather from Heathers, she's just this awful person who just keeps trying to fuck anything that moves.
Well, and then you have the surfboarding friends who are also not gay.
I guess
for a minute.
But they don't know that they are.
Well, they were talking about fondling each other's balls. So
right.
Yeah, and then it disappears though. And then in the next scene, they're not a couple. So it's like, well, what was the joke?
Right. Yeah, I thought they were learning that they were actually in love with each other. I was
right.
like, oh, well, that's kind of cool.
So in the next scene, they should be together, but it didn't appear like they were together.
No.
So it was...
I don't know. I think maybe Mike White's just afraid of gay characters. I think Mike White is super homophobic.
How would you say you know that? So the thing that really bugged me about this movie, and you guys have already both kind of touched on it, but I do want to, I think, kind of maybe go back to a little bit more, the Colin Hanks of it all. All I could see when I was watching this movie was a very poor attempt at trying to make this guy like his father. And I'm not saying Colin Hanks isn't a talented actor, far from it. I think Colin Hanks is an immensely talented actor. But to quote Matthew Lillard from Scream, he's no Tom Hanks, as they would say. And they try really hard in this movie to make him as likable as his father. And I mean, there's points in this movie where his hair is oddly reminiscent of Tom Hanks's hair.
And his hair's changed multiple times in this movie.
Yeah. And there's one of his haircuts makes him look like Tom Hanks. It's kind of like this, like, kind of big dragnet era, like kind of like messy hair. And, and I was just thinking to myself, like, well, I appreciate what they were going for. And I understand that, Nepo babies are a thing. Colin Hanks does not have the same charismatic abilities that his dad does. That's just a fact of life. And it's not his fault. It's not Tom Hanks's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just a fact of life. And it's not like this movie, is some, amazingly written film and, it's Colin Hanks bringing the movie down because he's not a good actor. No, I don't think that the movie does much of anything to help out him as an actor. I think the movie is pretty poorly written, and I don't know, like it feels like a movie written in 2002. Can I put it that way? Like it definitely shows its age in terms of just like, I don't know, there's something so infantile about the premise of this movie that makes me just like shake my head at the entire idea of what this movie's going for. But then when you see Colin Hanks on screen, every time I see him on screen, I'm just like, you're not Tom Hanks. And this movie really wishes you were. Because if you had been Tom Hanks, maybe you could be more endearing to the audience than you are. But yeah, for me, Colin Hanks in this character, in this role as his character, is so off-putting and so just kind of abrasive and an affluent little dick. Like, it's just, if you don't like the main character of your movie, you're not going to have a good time with the film, especially when that's the point of the movie. This is not a Casino situation where it's like, well, Sharon Stone's meant to be obnoxious and you're not going to like her. We're supposed to empathize and sympathize with our main character in this movie. And we don't, not once, because he's just kind of the worst. And he's a little trust fund baby that all he does is complain.
And that affability of Tom Hanks is completely missing from him.
They think they have it, though. They think they've got it. You can see them trying in some scenes in this movie where they're like, we've got the next Tom Hanks. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. Like, you really don't.
It's hard to see that when he's strangling Lily Tomlin, you know?
Yeah. As soon as he starts to go for her, I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be bad. I'm surprised it didn't end up worse than it was when she starts running around talking about a code red being pulled. I was like, oh, okay, you're
early 2000s. We didn't have stuff like this. Come on. A year post 9/11. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I like Colin Hanks quite a bit, but yeah, not in
good in Band of Brothers.
Yeah, great in there. I thought he was there was a TV show, and I'm trying to remember what it was called, where it was him and Bradley Whitford. And what was it called? Sorry,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it was like you talking about The Good Guys. Yeah, it's like a cop show, right?
Yeah. I think Mark, when we take over the one season show, we need to do a whole season about The Good Guys here. So I'm making notes. I've got that list going for us. So
I'm not familiar with that.
It's really good. He's basically the young cop who's by the books, and then Bradley Whitford's the older cop who is just a real fuck up in life. And it's one of those like, all right, can the guy who goes away from the books gets more stuff done than the guy who goes by the books? And it was actually pretty good. I liked their chemistry quite a bit. It was Matt Nix, who I want to say did what's that one that I like so much? Burn Notice. He was the guy behind Burn Notice.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked Colin Hanks in that. I think he's actually a better writer than actor sometimes, but better director than actor sometimes.
I'm more of a fan of his work on the acclaimed hit TV show Roswell.
Oh God,
I didn't see that either.
Which version of Roswell? The reboot or the original?
He was a character on the original run of the show in '99. Wow. I know. He's been acting that long. I mean, he was in Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone who's listening to this to take away that I dislike Colin Hanks. It's actually far from it. It's just in this movie, the way his character is written and portrayed is so unbelievably unlikable that if anything, the movie should have been about Jack Black's character. And we have this guy coming in from stage left every now and then to reaffirm to us that he's an asshole. And because Jack Black's character is a stoner, but that's it. Like he doesn't.
Everybody's underwritten.
Well, everybody's a stereotype.
Every character is underwritten. Yeah.
Harold Ramis?
He was one of the highlights. That's where I started to chuckle. That little scene, even though it's pointless, and I don't know, for some reason I was happy to see him and thought he was, pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept that you mentioned his girlfriend, the Skylar Fisk, and I was like, God, that girl looks familiar. And then I read up and I was like, oh, because that's Sissy Spacek's daughter.
Oh,
looks a lot like her.
Wow, we got
Spacek
babies everywhere.
Yeah.
In a film directed by Jake Kadan, I'm surprised that Ivan Reitman's son didn't just produce this.
Got Ben Stiller in there. We've got
that's true.
Yeah.
Ben Stiller for Lizzie Kaplan's in the movie for a minute.
Yeah, hot second. That repeating riff with that song and the girl.
Oh my God.
I was like, what is this?
Butterfly by Crazy Town. What did they
Speaking 2002, my God.
How many times do I need to hear that terrible song? Apparently 3 times. That's the answer. 3 times in the span of an hour and a half movie.
It so reminded me of White Chicks with that, making my way downtown and all those white girls going, oh, it's my jam. It's my jam.
Yeah, but somehow that was actually funny. This is just like all of a sudden we take like a pause to have our characters do a synchronized dance. Like,
Yeah.
like nobody does this in real life. I've been to college parties. Stop. Like, you fucking movie. Like, I don't know. Again, it's again like this feels like such a movie. It doesn't really feel like a real idea. This feels like a premise for a movie. And it's like, and it's not even a good movie. It's just kind of, I don't know. I don't dislike college movies, but I dislike when a college movie isn't even like honest about what it's trying to do, which this movie's not.
I think that thing with the synchronized dancing was to show just how much like high school college is. Because once they go to that college party, I mean, that college doofus that his girlfriend is talking to, I'm just like, she's expecting some big intellectual. And this guy's just like, what was he talking about? Like his tennis score or something like that. He was obsessed with.
He says at one point he's working on a TV show that's ostensibly about vampires, but it's actually about the reunification of Germany,
right?
Which was the only line in the entire movie that made me laugh. I chuckled at that one line, and Nate Faxon is pretty funny because he's in a lot of comedic stuff, including Beer Fest, which is what I always think of when I think of Nate Faxon. He plays one of the German brothers in Beer Fest, and he's pretty funny. But yeah, sure. It's trying to show that college is just like high school. Wow. They're just like us. God.
Well, and the dance thing made me think.
It makes it feel like an MTV movie. That's what it makes me feel like.
Right. But I was early on, even I was going, is this going to be, it wasn't hitting any particular tone. Is this going to be kind of absurd and ridiculous or straight? And the movie never figured out which one of those it was going to be. That dance thing could have been a recurring deal all throughout the movie and just more and more ridiculous every time. And the shenanigans could have been way more over the top to, be absurd instead of just annoying, which is what they were, annoying to the characters and annoying to the audience. I was just annoyed at every turn. Okay, I know that this Gary Marshall scene isn't going to go. Everything that he's telling his family not to do, they're going to do, and worse. So I don't know, either play that up or switch it around and have it go great, but still not work. Gary Marshall's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I really have no pull there, but thanks for the wine," and then leaves. Something like that. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah. And again, I didn't care. Like using your weight to schmooze some people to get into a college that maybe you don't deserve to get into. Although I guess that's the premise, is that he does deserve to get in there, not this other guy.
He's an up and coming Bukowski, Mark.
Sure.
Yeah. He's one of the young
from Orange County.
Yeah. Had he been like the opposite of the black sheep of the family, that Lisa Simpson of it all, where everybody else in their in her family is a mental midget, but she's the one who has the smarts and has to do things on her own and has to, tries to get out from under the stifling intellectualism or non-intellectualism of the rest of her family. That would have been interesting. And then at the end, she realizes, oh, well, I'm a Simpsons after all, so I love my family and I don't want to leave them and I don't want to leave everybody else. But he's not. It's not like Colin Hanks. Yes, I guess he's supposed to be super smart in here, but it's not like the rest of the family is just completely awful. It's not like they're living in squalor. It's not like when Catherine O'Hara divorced the John Lithgow character that he's living in the mansion and she's just living in this piece of shit house, unless that's supposed to be a piece of shit house. But for me as a Midwesterner, I'm like, well, that's a very fancy place that you got there.
Yeah.
Especially in Orange County.
Right.
Yeah. One of the highest, real estate.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Lithgow's living in a much more,
And got tons of cars. And
yeah, he's got the ocean view. He's got the hot young wife with Leslie Mann, and her. I love the scene with her in the background with the pool guy, like,
massaging
her feet and everything. But I'm just like, okay, we don't need the moment where he turns and sees that. That just needs to be in the background. That needs to be a funny bit in the background, but they don't
Airplane
know.
rules.
Exactly.
Zaz rules. Just have that play out. I'm like, oh, he's going to notice. He shouldn't notice, but he's going to notice, and he does.
Yeah. Ugh.
Then it doesn't work.
I'm like,
That's what I mean by like,
that's it.
missing the tone. Like have that be a silly thing going on in the background, and
Right. And she needs to have run away with Juan the pool boy at the end of the film rather than also being part of this big mix.
And obviously the kid was the pool guys, right? Is that what we're? I mean, because
is that
kid
because
seemed like he was mixed?
That would make more sense. That would make a lot more sense, but I didn't pick up on that joke.
I'm not sure it was a joke.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like stuff. It doesn't seem like it's one of those cases where stuff is missing. Like was in the script, and maybe it was, but a lot of it just seems like this needed like 2 or 3 more passes by Mike White to get things sorted out.
Yeah, Mike.
Lazy Mike White.
That lazy Mike White. Well, I mean, look,
the laziest writer.
I mean, look, we've talked about the term Nepo babies, and this movie has plenty of them. And technically, I mean, Leslie Mann and Judd Apatow's daughter is the original, like, she was the one that the tweet was about, right? The original Nepo baby tweet was about their oldest daughter. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, well, Nepo babies are a dime a dozen, literally.
It's been going on since the beginning of movies.
Oh, yeah. Talk to the Barrymores.
Yeah. It's, born into the family business. What do you expect? I have no issue with
it either, as long as they're talented, because there are certain actors, actresses, filmmakers where you're just like, wow, had this guy not been the son of the producer or this or that. I mean, you look at like Friedberg and Seltzer, like Friedberg's dad is an actual talented director, and then his son has no way of carrying water. Yeah, Max Landis, one of the worst. I mean, you look at John Landis's films, and we'll talk about that. Actually, a couple of his films coming up here on the Chasing Chevy Chase podcast. But man, oh man, Max just is the worst.
Yeah, well, and I would say another name that's up there is Dakota Johnson. I mean, it's just and I think
like her.
I like her, but I think I like her because I think she just doesn't give a fuck, which I like deeply appreciate. Is she's just like, yeah, well, there's nothing I can do about it. So what do you want from me? Like, and like there is something to be said for that, because none of these people were born as Nepo babies intentionally. That's just what happens. But this movie's full of them, and it's hard to overlook how many there are. There's like Nepo babies, and then there's like clearly like friends of the Nepo babies' parents, like Harold Ramis, Chevy Chase, like Lily Tomlin. Movie.
Speaking of Chevy Chase,
yeah, let's talk about Chevy Chase. Let's talk about him more than he's in the movie.
The raison d'etre of our podcast here. Yes, what a strange little turn. And yeah, to your point, Mark, I wonder if there was supposed to be more of him.
I don't know, but he's in it for a hot minute and has his reason for being there is a pervy joke about Britney Spears, and then cut, and that's it. And I thought 10 minutes in, okay, he's going to pop up at least 2 more times, right? Thinking back on Dirty Work or some of the other ones that I know that we're doing where he is not the lead, but they're more contemporary. Nope. I thought, okay, we're getting down to like 15 minutes left. It still kind of makes sense if he pops in, maybe saves the day, fixes the transcript issue.
Yeah.
Nope. This is a short movie too. It's listed as under 90 minutes, and then there's a good 4 minutes of credits. So I think it was about 1 hour and 18 minutes of movie time.
Film.
And so I still was like, look, even at 5 minutes, I'm like, well, he could pop up again. Nope, credits. Gone, done. And I think I was being generous when I said he's on screen for 2 minutes, and it really literally is a minute. You can find his scene on YouTube, and it is a 58-second video.
Yikes.
Yeah. I mean, Mike White is in the movie more than...
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
2 or 3 scenes. And even Ben Stiller's scene is longer. He has more lines and more interaction with Jack Black than Chevy Chase does with Colin Hanks.
This was a weird time in Ben Stiller's life where he was doing a lot of cameos. I mean, just would show up in odd places, like some of the Happy Madison movies. He would show up in, like, doesn't he abuse Adam Sandler's grandmother in one of the movies? Or
you will go to sleep, or I will put you to sleep.
There you go.
I'm Happy Gilmore. Yeah.
Right. And
you're in my world now, Grandma. Yeah. He's great. He's great in Happy Gilmore. I mean, Ben Stiller's too old for this movie, but Ben Stiller could have played the Shane Brumder character in another lifetime. I mean, early 90s, Ben Stiller, reality bites, right? Like,
and then you kind of like to see him punished. I mean, that's the thing about Ben Stiller, is that he knows he can be an asshole.
One of the best, really.
Like, he's a fantastic asshole. Yeah. And it just like, put him in here and get this guy punished. Or like even Jack Black, like you were saying, like he would have been a much more interesting character to follow. And either the way he helps, quote unquote, his brother, or screws up some of the things with his brother, and just that he should be that voice rather than Kevin Kline, that voice to be like, listen, this is your home. This is also what's giving you all of your best story ideas. You don't want to leave Orange County because this is a rich vein of incredible fiction that you can now, cash in on, young man. It shouldn't be like, oh my God, I hate all these people. I have to get away from here.
Speaking of Ben Stiller, when you were talking about him being a jerk, it just made me think of his turn on Friends, where I don't know if you guys, I know a lot of people hate that show, but my wife and I watched it like the whole time after we got together, and he does that where he's super nice, and then he flips out and no one else sees it but Ross or whatever. And it made me think of all those turns he takes in movies, those little bits where he just instantly goes off on stuff, and they don't get there in this. They don't get quite that far in this, but I always love it when he does that.
I love the irony of Ben Stiller and Jack Black being in this movie together. Maybe 10, almost 10 years before Tropic Thunder comes out.
Mm-hmm.
The two of them are in this scene together, and then like
Jack Black, the voice of Jack in Heat Vision and Jack, the pilot that I don't even know if it's a real pilot or not, but the thing that Ben Stiller directed with Owen Wilson as
I think so, yeah,
astronaut, yeah. Oh my God!
Oh, and they're both in Cable Guy. I mean, they're both in Cable Guy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where Leslie Mann and Judd Apatow met, if memory serves.
Yeah. I think a lot of this goes back to Freaks and Geeks. A lot of the people that were involved in this also were involved in that, especially Mike White. And I want to say Jake Kadan even directed an episode.
He did. Yeah, he did. I was looking at his credits.
Oh, he directed 5 episodes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot.
Show I've never seen.
Oh, it's pretty darn good. I don't know if I'm going to do it on the 1 season show or not, but
that might be a little on the nose. It's like doing Firefly on the 1 season show. Like what have you got to say that everybody else hasn't said, right?
Yeah. If not Freaks and Geeks, then Undeclared is kind of the offshoot of that.
Mm-hmm.
There was no Jason Segel in this movie. That's what I was surprised by. No Jason Segel, no Paul Rudd.
True. Yeah, Paul Rudd's almost always there. I forgot Jake Kadan directed Zero Effect with Ben Stiller.
That's what I was talking about. Like, that was an earlier Ben Stiller movie. That's exactly what I was thinking of. No,
I'm sorry.
But that's exactly what I just couldn't remember the name, but that's exactly what I was thinking of. It's like Ben Stiller at one point was like that Reality Bites. Like, they're trying to make this guy like a thing. And it's like, I'm not saying Ben Stiller's not a thing, but Ben Stiller doesn't need anybody else to make him a thing. Like, he's fine. And that's the funny thing. Jake Kadan directed one of my like favorite comedies, period, and he wrote it, which is Walk Hard. I mean, Walk Hard is Walk Hard's amazing. Like, I think Walk Hard is kind of in a lot of ways the movie that, like, why are we doing biopics anymore after this movie kind of made fun of it succinctly to the point where even like the Bob Marley movie that came out earlier this year is still doing the things that movie was making fun of almost, over a decade ago. And that's, Jake Kadan can direct and write. I just don't think that looking at the things that he's worked on since that he has directed and written, the things that he has only directed, even those things for the most part are better. Because I actually enjoy that Jumanji movie, that first one, a fair amount. I haven't seen the second one, but the first one's way better than it has any right to be. And and I'm not going to see that fucking J.K. Simmons Santa Claus movie. No matter what anyone says, I'm not going to see a movie with snowmen asses dancing around. Okay, it's just not happening.
I'll tell you, I agree with you completely on the first Jumanji, the reboot or whatever we want to call it. Welcome to the Jungle. That second one, I was not a big fan of it. I like Aquafina, and she was okay, but it was the Danny DeVito and Danny Glover effect of it, where they're just like, oh, we're old men, so now our avatars have to talk like old men. And I'm like, okay, I don't know any real old man in real life that actually speaks the way that you guys are speaking.
Yeah, no.
Well, and that's kind of how I felt in this. This is one of those, Mike White isn't that old, and he probably wasn't very old when he wrote this and not that far removed from high school or college maybe, but it felt like one of those, this is an old guy writing teens for a new generation.
Fellow kids.
Yeah, it doesn't quite get it. Right, exactly.
He would have been 30. He was 31 when this movie came.
Yes, yeah,
That's funny that his first credit is for, what was that, the Dead Man on Campus, right? There were two movies that came out the exact same year that were both about and I think it's an urban legend about if your roommate commits suicide that you get all A's at school. So it's yet another college movie. And I thought that one was actually a little bit better. I think Tom Everett Scott is better than Jake Kadan because Tom Everett Scott can play, or not Jake Kadan. I think Tom Everett Scott is a better protagonist than at least in this movie, Colin Hanks, because you really can dislike Tom Everett Scott super easily.
Well, and we're not supposed to like him as a character. In this movie, we are supposed to like Colin Hanks, and it couldn't be further from that, really. Like,
so what was the other movie? You said there were two movies that came out.
That Jake Kadan had done. It was Walk Hard and Jumanji.
I will find that out because I'm trying to remember. It was written by, now this is Chris, this is off the record. And it was written by the guy who it was called The Dinner Party movie. What's that called? Sorry guys. Oh, The Last Supper. That's what it's called. Last Supper movie from 1995. He went in and pitched this movie about if your roommate dies, you get all A's. And the next person that was pitching was Mike White. So he's always held a grudge against him. The Curve is the name of the other movie.
Huh.
Yes.
I haven't seen either of them.
I watch both of them because I'm always fascinated by these two movies are based on the same idea. And let's see how they do it. The other one starred Matthew Lillard and Michael Vartan. Else, that's a blast from the 90s, right? Michael Vartan.
Wasn't he in Alias?
Yeah. And Rogue, the Killer Crocodile movie. Yes.
Wow. Mm-hmm. He was on an episode of something we did an episode of the One Season Show on. So it all comes back to the One Season Show, which you guys can have. I don't care. Take it and do whatever the hell you want with it. I ain't got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Can we talk a little bit about Jack Black in this movie? Jack Black, star of such famous video game films as the Super Mario Brothers movie, Borderlands, soon to be the Minecraft movie. Why is Jack Black all of a sudden the video game movie guy? I don't get it. But he should probably be a little bit
over Chris Pratt though. So. I'll take him over Chris Pratt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At least Jack Black seems like an endearing human being and not dead behind the eyes like Chris Pratt is like more and more striking me. I think Jack Black could have actually and should have probably been the main character of the movie. And I think that it should have been Colin Hanks's character is the one checking in from time to time, because again, like having Colin Hanks be the main character in this movie feels like a mistake. And Jack Black's character is written in such a way where he's meant to be annoying, but you ultimately, I think, kind of empathize with everybody but Colin Hanks's character more because he's kind of treating everyone in his life rather poorly, or at least that's the way it would seem to me.
Oh, he's not as bad as Scott Pilgrim, but he definitely is a dick.
He's in that same vein, though.
Yeah,
he's selfish.
Yeah. Well, he only thinks about what he wants in terms of the way the movie has told him to, and so it's like, I don't like characters like this. Like I have a hard time empathizing with a guy who's acting this way. So
I don't care that you didn't get into Stanford,
right?
And you're methods of trying to achieve that now are annoying and self-entitled.
Yeah, and not everybody can just invite family friends over to try and schmooze them up to
and I don't
get
think
into college.
and if that was intentional, they didn't hit it hard enough. Like, have him be a total prick throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Be one of those smarmy characters who's using everybody, even his girlfriend, whoever. Have it come out that everybody ends up realizing, hey, you're a selfish asshole. You know, it's like they're trying to help him. Mom is sort of useless and dad's too busy, but they sort of all want to help him achieve this goal.
Wait, at the end of the movie, they give enough money to open up the so-and-so wing of Stanford because there was an accident at the admissions office. What do you know? Oh my God. And I could just so see that coming as soon as he had the list. And when he has the list, Jack Black has the list of here's all the people that get into Stanford. I'm just like, okay, we'll write your brother's name on there. Boom, end of movie. But no, has to light it on fire, throw it in the garbage can, which is right next to the curtains, and we're going to burn the whole place down. I'm like, okay, great. And then he has to be on the run from the cops. And I'm just like, oh, this is not good. And the way he escapes from the cops makes no fucking sense. And again, yes, I know this is a comedy, but it's just not that funny.
It's not funny at all, really. I mean, it's a kind of comedy that was coming out at a certain time in our kind of movie history that I don't know. It just when I was watching it last night, a friend of mine was like, "Isn't there a movie that has Jason Lee and Tom Green in it where they're trying to get into college?" Yeah, there is. It's called Stealing Harvard. And it has a very similar plot to this movie. Like, and then The Perfect Score. You guys remember that movie? The Chris Evans movie where they're trying to steal SAT scores?
There's a whole series of movies about stealing SAT scores. I also did an article about that. And there was even a Turkish comedy, get this, with a small role by Jean-Claude Van Damme, where he shows up in this Turkish film about kids stealing test answers.
Yeah, I don't know if I like those ideas more or the one of like, let's make our own college more with Accepted. You remember that movie where it's with Justin Long, where they make their own college and they all go to it?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
That
it's
sounds
like
fun though.
Justin Long,
a lot.
Jonah Hill, a couple other people. And it's like they don't get into college, so they make their own college.
Oh, I have seen that movie. Yeah,
I saw it in theater. I think it came out in like 2008 or something. Like I think I saw it when I was in college, my freshman year even.
That's kind of like that Will Ferrell, Vince Vaughn movie in a way. Let's create
old
our own,
school? Yeah.
let's create our own fraternity.
Yeah.
Todd Phillips, everybody. What's that guy doing?
Blue, poor Blue.
Oh, and that was also, didn't he also do Road Trip, that Tom Green film, also about college admissions?
Yeah, and then he also directed Starsky and Hutch, which had Ben Stiller in it, playing.
Oh,
It all comes back.
It's all circular, people.
The comedy, a certain subsection of comedy in this country is very incestuous. This movie is kind of in that world, as it were, of like a lot of people working together that work together on a lot of things or have family members that like Harold Ramis is in this movie only because somebody was like, "Hey, Harold, you want to be in my kid's movie?" Like,
oh, you mean Lawrence was probably doing that? That's probably Larry Caston that got Kevin Kline. Because I'm like, well, Kevin Kline was in The Big Chill. He was in Grand Canyon, all of these, Silverado,
yeah.
Fucking great in Silverado. And yeah, it's like, just made me want to watch Silverado.
I mean, probably, was around the house when Jake was growing up. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
This movie's only 3 years removed from Wild Wild West.
So why didn't we get another Kevin Kline in a dress? Huh?
Right. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, come on.
Colin Hanks, grab my boobs. What do they feel like, Colin Hanks? Feel like they're full of sand.
I was wondering if this had any connection to that show, The OC. Because I sort of, it just made me feel like the same way I felt about all those characters on that show. Like, I don't care about any of you people and your problems.
Well, it uses the music from the OC because the theme song for the show is that fucking Phantom Planet song, which, by the way, speaking of nepotism, speaking of nepo babies, Phantom Planet's lead singer, or not lead singer, but drummer is Jason Schwartzman. Jason Schwartzman.
Yeah.
Speaking of nepo babies, speaking of like again, like the nepo babies, like my
nepo family,
the whole family, yeah.
Hey,
Hey, they got the chops though, so I mean
That's
you could
true.
argue that at least.
I was about to say like Begley says, and then no one agrees necessarily. I mean, I'm not a I'm not a Wes Anderson guy, so
I love Jason Schwartzman, so
he's less annoying as a nepo baby than in the things I've seen him in than Colin Hanks is in this movie. But hey,
fair.
that poster has Jack Black with an orange in his mouth.
Oh yeah, just like The Godfather. Speaking of Francis Ford Coppola left.
Yeah, it's a film of cinematic caliber of The Godfather, really.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, I don't really get the poster. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it.
It's the oranges from Orange County. Wait a minute.
Right.
There weren't any oranges in Orange County.
There's no Kane in Citizen Kane.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should double check our next
That's what I
just be movie first. Yeah.
No, this wasn't because of Chevy Chase. This was because of Mike White.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
That was why.
Okay, I get it.
Ah.
I'm glad you mentioned that at the beginning then, because
I've always wanted to, and I'm putting this out into the universe. I've always wanted to interview Mike White, but it has to be a print interview so that it just says Mike White and the question with then Mike White and then the answer.
Yes.
That's what I want.
Who is it? Who is it?
Who's talking? Who's not talking?
I don't understand.
Yes, but at least like funny money, and I don't know about the last laugh. That's not the
Just gonna look at our
Burnell
list.
film, is it?
So what's really funny is we missed an opportunity to watch another Nepo Baby movie because Chevy Chase is actually in Snow Day, which is a Nickelodeon film, and Skylar Fisk is also in that movie. Of all things, playing the main character's girlfriend, and then Chevy Chase plays the main character's father. And he's actually in that more than he. If I guess if I could have gone back in time and changed it, I would have changed this to be Snow Day because at least Chevy Chase is in it a little bit more. But yeah, Chevy Chase is barely in this movie.
Well, I appreciate you highlighting Mike White. So,
Of course, well, yeah, like got it.
more people need to know about Mike White and how awesome he is.
Well, they watch The White Lotus. I think they know at this point.
Yeah.
Sean Brumder. What kind of last name is Brumder?
Oh, are you going to get racist now about people named Brumder?
Brainerd.
Yeah. Jeez.
Brumder.
I was like, is this not an acronym, but a whatever?
Oh.
We arrange the letters to something.
Yeah.
An anagram.
Anagram.
Yeah. No.
Do not watch this expecting a lot of Chevy Chase.
No.
That's all I can
Definitely
add.
not. Yeah.
Don't expect this. Don't watch this expecting a lot of anything, really.
Roger Ebert liked it apparently.
Yeah, boy, 3 out of 4 stars. Whatever.
Wow.
Dude. Okay. Them horror movies are really what the problem is.
Yeah.
Raj. All right.
David Lynch's Orange County. That's
What did you say? You're trying to go to Stanford? What now?
Fuck is the horizon?
I'd watch that movie. Shane Brumder walks into his dad's house.
He's in the animation.
Oh my God. That
His
would be
dad is just the creature from Eraserhead, the baby, talking to him.
He gets to Stanford and his professor is just a tree.
Yeah. A living tree. God. It's actually Carol Stroiken. That's who it is.
It's quiz time again.
Yeah, I would rather sit for another hour and talk about that movie that doesn't exist than watch an hour-long movie known as Orange County. Because at the end of the day, at least the movie's only about an hour long. There is that.
Yeah.
So
It
It's
does
short.
move fast. Yes, thank goodness.
It is short.
But moving on the next episode of the Chasing Chevy Chase podcast, we're going to be returning to the world of vacation with a look at 1985's National Lampoon's European Vacation, the one that I may have seen the most other than Vegas Vacation, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Until then, where can people find you and the things that you work on, Mark Begley?
You can find my shows, Cambridge and Michonne. What are they called? Cambridge and Michonne and Wake Up Heavy over on weirdandwaymedia.com. How about you, Mike White? The other Mike White.
You can find the new season of The White Lotus available on Max, which we now just call Max. I've got a fantastic cast lined up for everyone, including John Grice himself. Uncle Rico will be back. So yes, be sure to check that out. How about you, Chris?
You can find me in the things that I work on over at weirdingwaymedia.com, which is where you can also find the things that you work on. I know people know that, but I'm just going to make sure that they're aware. Yeah, other than the one show that you and I do, which is on Patreon, on our respective Patreon pages, $10 or higher, gets access to us talking about James Bond with our dear friend, Mr. Richard Hattem. So until then, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes, please. Anywhere else is not going to be nearly as helpful as helping us out on iTunes. And we'll catch you on the next episode.